Hey, Pretty Girl Club. I'm going to talk about how people bully the pretty girls because we are perceived as feminine and soft. Have you ever noticed that people have a tendency to bully you if you are hyper feminine? Let's say you wear like cute clothes. And I've noticed that a lot of times people bully feminine pretty girls because number one, there is jealousy for your femininity or there's jealousy over how you are perceived. Everybody knows that if you are considered to be pretty, then your beauty will be perceived as a form of social power. And so for the people who feel like they're at the bottom, the way that they try to take that power back is by bullying you. And also, I believe that people subconsciously stereotype pretty feminine women as being soft, and so it makes them feel like you're an easy target. Oftentimes, if people want to come for you, they tend to come for the person that they think isn't going to fight back because they think, she's not going to mess up her pretty face, or she has such a beautiful image, or she has such a beautiful brand with her business. She has such a beautiful YouTube following, a beautiful online social media account. So I can bully her on social media, and she is probably not going to say anything back because she's used to being Little Miss Perfect or being perceived as perfect. I've noticed that people have this tendency to expect perfection out of you when they place you on a pedestal. We all know that beauty is placed on a pedestal. Oftentimes, people will associate your beauty with femininity, even if you're not wearing a dress or anything like that, even if you have short hair. If people perceive you as beautiful, they have a tendency to still view you as beautiful, even if you do have a short haircut or if you dress like a tomboy. Have you ever seen girls where no matter how tomboy they dress, they still look feminine or you still perceive them as feminine? Well, most likely it's because you think that that girl is actually very pretty. I've noticed that people tend to associate ugly with being masculine on women, and then they tend to associate beautiful with being feminine. So if you're embodying that feminine energy, if you're embodying your femininity, then it's going to make people want to target you because they feel like you're an easier punching bag because they know that women who are of high status, that they often have something to lose. And usually it's the women who have no social standing or the men who have no social standing, no social status, they have nothing to lose. Those people are the craziest. I notice another thing that happens is people mistake your kindness as weakness. People are less intimidated by you if you are beautiful. They're less intimidated by you if they perceive you as feminine. And so because people are not intimidated by you, it makes them feel like it's okay for them to name call you or for them to get others to name call you or to spread gossip and lies about you. And usually the people who think like this, these are people who have problems showing their vulnerability. And by the way, for those of you who are curious, if you want to be perceived as feminine, one of the main subconscious associations of femininity is vulnerability. So this could be emotional vulnerability, this could be physical vulnerability, like a woman being small or petite, your muscles aren't as strong as a guy or something like that. And so the people who have a hard time showing emotional vulnerability, usually those are the ones who will mistake your kindness for weakness because that person doesn't understand what it's like to be open with others because that person has a toxic life, or maybe they came from a toxic background. Maybe their family sucks, or their relationships or friendships suck. And so they're not used to feeling emotionally safe enough to be vulnerable. And so if they see you showing vulnerabilities or, just opening up, talking about your background, telling stories about who you are or the things you've overcome, oftentimes people will try to exploit those things because they see that as a form of weakness. But it's actually not a weakness. All you're doing is really showing your feminine softness. You are not afraid to talk about the mistakes you've made or who you used to be and who you are now. But people tend to bully the pretty girl out of jealousy. They tend to bully feminine women because they themselves are not bold enough to express their femininity, or they have some sort of internalized self-hatred. They have like a wounded feminine energy, if that makes sense. I don't consider myself spiritual, but sometimes I like to use spiritual language because it helps me to describe myself better or to describe what I'm talking about. But women who have kind of this wounded feminine, these types of women, they're not okay with being vulnerable. They're not okay with saying when they were wrong. They're not okay with allowing others to see their flaws or see their mistakes. They have this obsession with perfection, or they want to be seen as the one that's strong or the one that's untouchable or unbreakable. But we all know, anybody who has common sense knows that there's no such thing as a human being that has no emotion, unless that person is mentally ill. But for the most part, I've realized that people bully pretty feminine women because they perceive pretty and feminine women as being soft. And so if you are perceived as soft, you're a nice soft target. You're a nice soft easy target for them. Because the thing about beauty and femininity is it's very alluring. Femininity and beauty tend to be more non-threatening, or at least if you're a person of status, you wouldn't be threatened by femininity or beauty. And so because you are the type of person that can provide a safe space, people who are jealous of that or people who are triggered by that, they get upset and they don't want you to express your femininity. There are a lot of women out there who did not have the emotionally safe environment to express their femininity or to play around with their femininity, to wear the makeup or the nail polishes or to give themselves the princess treatment or to have the princess mindset. And so when you start exhibiting that princess mindset, then people will start saying, well, you think you're better, or you only have a princess mindset because you think you're better than me, or they will stereotype you as you only have that princess mindset because you get treated like a princess by men, and so therefore you must be male-centered. And they're saying this because they themselves, they don't understand what it's like to be a princess. They don't understand what it's like to go through life on a pedestal. They only understand life being at the bottom in terms of social status or in terms of their own self-esteem. And so when other people perceive you as the pretty feminine girl, they associate your soft nature with being weak because they grew up in a very hard environment. They've had a very hard life. They live their life on the defense. They live their life in anger, constantly angry at all the injustices done towards them, constantly angry at how much they've been betrayed, constantly stressed out, waking up with a headache, always in crisis mode because somebody's always mistreating them. So those people, they don't know what it's like to be soft, because in order to embrace your feminine softness, you have to have this carefree nature. You have to be able to be carefree. And obviously you can't be carefree if you're stuck in survival mode. You can't be carefree if you are constantly stuck on defensive mode. You definitely can't be vulnerable and soft if you are constantly around people who are exploiting you, or maybe your background is like, you come from a toxic family or something like that. Another thing that I've noticed is that women who are constantly in their masculine energy, they are not used to being around a feminine woman. And so they have the tendency to think of femininity as being weaker because they have kind of like this internalized misogyny. Not to mention the fact that some people actually have stereotypes and they believe that if you're a woman of color, you can't have femininity, or you can't be feminine. Or if you're black, or if you're dark skinned with short 4C hair, you can't be feminine. If you wear a suit, that's not feminine. If you wear a tie, you're no longer feminine. So they've got all of these different boxes and categories that they try to place people in. And so if you don't fit those boxes, and if you are just living your best carefree, feminine, soft life, then suddenly that person gets upset because they've been raised in an environment that teaches against softness. Have you ever met those people where they have this very hard personality, a very hard way of speaking, a very hard delivery? And when I say a hard way of speaking, what I mean is they have a tendency to verbally attack you instead of addressing your talking points in an argument. So instead of actually talking about whatever it is you want to discuss, these are the types of people who have a tendency to deflect. They have a tendency to go into insults and stuff like that because they have kind of like this street, ghetto, kind of trashy mindset. And so they're not used to showing vulnerability. They're not used to being able to be soft or being able to admit the areas where they can change and improve. These are the types of people that have such a bad inferiority complex to the point where they're constantly in this extreme self-preservation mode to the point of viewing everybody else as their competition. These are oftentimes the people that have that hierarchy mindset. And so if you are perceived as feminine and soft, then suddenly you become a threat because your femininity makes them appear more masculine. So once again, going back to that hierarchy mindset, there are people that feel like femininity is a competition. So, my hair's longer than yours, therefore I'm more feminine than you. Well, I'm wearing more makeup than you, therefore I'm more feminine than you. Well, I have on a whole lace front. You're just wearing your natural hair, so I'm more feminine than you because I have on a wig. So they're doing all of these things. They're searching for all of these external tools that they can use because they're trying to be more feminine, but what they don't realize is they're actually mimicking femininity as opposed to letting it come from within. But has this ever happened to you? Have you ever had someone who tries to punish you for embracing your feminine softness? Have you ever had someone try to punish you for showing a range of emotions or for not being afraid of letting your flaws show? Have you ever had someone try to place you on such a high pedestal to the point where they expect perfection from you at all times? What do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.